Hi there, episode 317 of Quest for You. When I look at my life, and I do this quite frequently, I can't help but notice two key observations. One, I have less now than I did a few years ago, even though I make more money, and this applies mostly to my material possessions. And two, I'm happier now than when I had more stuff. Pretty generic statements, I realized that. But then I thought about it more and wanted to get to the bottom of it. I noticed that there is a correlation between the two observations. At my peak, I had a 3-bedroom house with a pool and a really cool big backyard. Of course, I didn't really own the house, the bank did, but it was a spacious house with privacy, tons of closets for all my stuff, a garage for my car, and so much more. Now, I live in a shared apartment, and you can imagine all the sacrifices that this entails. So how is it possible to be happier with fewer things and less convenience? That's what I wanted to figure out. So I took some time and I looked back to see what caused some of my unhappiness back then. When I lived in that home, I realized I had 2 sets of stress. One was responsibility stress. This included maintenance of the home, such as garden work, cleaning those huge windows, fixing things around the house that needed it, and always the worry that something major, like the water heater or the pump for the pool, would break. I felt responsible for the home. It was mine, so of course, I didn't want to live with things that are broken or dysfunctional. Then there was a second form of stress. Competition stress. This included everything that had to do with keeping up with the neighbors. A beautifully landscaped garden is nice, but it's not a requirement to live in a house. Mine didn't come with one, so I always felt the stress in the back of my neck of knowing that this is something I eventually needed to do. There was the patio that was functional, but that I wanted to give a complete makeover, just because I had seen cooler patios in other houses. And there was more. Things I wanted to buy that would improve the house and somehow my happiness with it. You see where I'm going with this. The house controlled a big portion of my wallet, my time, and my mind. There was always something to do around the house, or to go out and buy for the house. Sometimes I felt like the house owned me. When a major car repair hits me, I feel the same way. Money that I would have liked to spend on something else was already slotted for the paint job that was needed, or the plumbing repair that came up. With my rented apartment, all this went away. I realized that when you own less, responsibility stress goes down. I still have some of it, because I do own a car, which is a pretty major possession. For once, here in Oakland, I'm always worried about break-ins. 2, every time I get on the freeway, I'm worried about accidents because Bay Area traffic is crazy. 3, as my miles go up, so do my worries about upcoming major repairs. 4, when I go climbing, there's always the worry about off-roads. Will my car make it through? The stress related to our possessions is often around money. The more we own, the more can go wrong with those things, and that requires us to come up with the money to fix them. And there's also stress around coordinating and planning. Who will watch the house when you go away on a long trip? Where do I park my car to minimize the chance of break-ins? Which computer should I take on my vacation? The work laptop or the personal one? While many of our possessions make our life easier, more comfortable and more productive, I couldn't imagine not having a car. I would lose a lot of time trying to get around with public transportation. But we cannot argue the fact that possessions need to be managed, and that takes time and money and energy. Competition stress, on the other hand, is not necessarily related to the amount we own. It's stress about the stuff we don't yet have. If you have an older car like mine, you're probably eyeing newer cars, like I do sometimes. But if you don't have a car at all, you probably want one. Competition stress is always there because we like to compare ourselves. And this comparison results in desires that are purely based on what other people have. So, responsibility stress is related to the things we own, and competition stress is related to the things we want. I realized that both types of stress have greatly reduced in my life. With less stress around stuff, I'm able to enjoy more of what I have. And, in addition, I can focus more on what I really want. The decision to get rid of the house was step 1 in reducing my responsibility stress. But then I had to make many other smaller decisions around being okay with less that contributed to a reduction in competition stress. It was a slow process. I moved all the furniture I owned to California, and I stuffed it into a tiny 2-bedroom cottage. I thought I needed it. When I finally realized that I'm paying rent to store furniture that I didn't need. A 6-person dining room table takes up a lot of space. Slowly, I reduced my possessions down to what I think I need and use, and as a result, need less space, which saves me a ton of money. If you think about it, most of what we desire has little to do with what we want, but with what we think we want. Outside influences, media, our friends and family shape our wants. Indirectly, they tell us what we should want. Think back of a time where you were fine with an item you owned. A handbag or a backpack you loved. A model phone that met all your needs. Or a piece of furniture that was comfy and good enough for you. And then someone or something came along and put the bug in you that this thing is suddenly not good enough anymore. Several of your friends carried a certain brand handbag that they raved about and got compliments on. Your cell phone provider talked you into getting a newer phone. And maybe you watched a TV show on decorating homes, and that made you suddenly unhappy with your old couch or worn table. Our environment and the culture we live in influences our individual pursuits. It reflects in the things we spend our money on, the career choices we make, and how we allocate our free time. These pursuits dominate our life, not because that's what we really want. It's because that's what we have learned to want. This quest for the things we think we should have removes us from our real and internal desires, which are related to self-expression. Looking around will always lead to a comparison between what we have and what the other person has. And this gap between the two creates a want. And this, my friends, is a distraction. We're going after something artificially created. Had we not seen this specific commercial or sat on that couch in that person's house, the want would not have existed. While it makes us feel like this was the best thing that ever happened to us, it really is just a distraction away from what we really desire. Always looking around means always adapting to what is happening in the moment, instead of focusing on who we want to be. Reducing the distractions in my life in the form of responsibility and competitive stress has helped me to focus more on my real desires. What skills do I want to learn? What aspects of my personality and character do I want to work on so I can be a better human being? And what is my vision for my life? I'm not here to tell you to sell your house or your cars. For me, it just was necessary. I was very distracted by the status quo and whatever was fashionable, and I didn't have a focus for my life. But I encourage you to look less around you for validation and look up more, because we all do it. We all compare and unconsciously compete with the world around us. And we need to relearn to imagine what could be possible without anyone telling us. Looking around is copying from whatever everyone else is doing. We can and should learn from others, but by looking up, we learn to look for the best examples, not just a random person that crosses our path. Looking around only shows us the possibilities near us. Looking up broadens our perspective and forces us to dig deeper, past the next best thing. Looking around is looking to conform to others. Looking up is looking to self-express and find our own answers. Looking around is competing. Looking up is searching for potential. Means exploring what is within us that allows us to contribute to the world in a meaningful way. I have discovered that eliminating the useless distractions in my life makes this possible. Less looking around, fewer unnecessary desires. Fewer things, less stress. Fewer worries, more happiness. This formula works out for me, and I wish it will work for you as well. Much love.